I think it's quite hard to tell, isn't it? But I'm sure we'll have a lovely sunset tonight down on the beach. For the final session, we've got extreme user experience. Very pleased to welcome Mike Rawling, who I think he's been coughing, but hopefully he's not going to be.
I'm co-presenting today. Me and a bug.
Okay. So without further ado, a big warm welcome to Mike.
Yeah, you have to excuse me if I I'm going to fall over and die of coughing, but I'll try and stick with it. Extreme user experience. It's not doing user experience on the side of a mountain or on a raft or something in the Amazon. It's I want to talk to you today about how one team melded UX with XP. Just a couple of things about the session itself. Quite a few things and techniques I want to communicate to you guys. So, more than happy to take questions, but all the things I get through may answer those questions by the end. So we'll have a few questions at the end, and but hopefully I'll answer them. The other thing is, I'm tweet with the best of them, but if you could turn your phone to silent, that'd be great. So you don't have to have a kind of chorus of noises going on. But cheers. Okie doke. This is me. I'm the senior UX engineer at Unruly Media. I've been doing UX engineering back to before it was called UX in 1998. Worked for various different companies, consulting, designing, engineering, coaching, and so on. But one other thing that's kind of connected all the jobs and challenges that I've taken on has been to realise that potential that every project starts out with. But really, the kind of exciting bit, the kind of, wow, wouldn't it be cool if, and take that through to the end. Because I've been on so many projects where that didn't happen at the beginning of my career. It kind of struck me that there has to be a better way of doing this. So hopefully some of the techniques I'll tell you today, share with you today, will help you do the same. Okay, I'm also at Agile Cambridge lecture. Right. It felt sensible to break it up into various themes. So I've got looking at ways of engaging with user experience, how to nurture empathy with users, getting into kind of visualising the product and the ideas that we have, actually beginning to make stuff, and then research, finding stuff out, and miscellaneous other things that can really help. Okay, who do I work for? What's the context? Unruly Media, the spiel goes, Unruly is a video technology company that works with top brands and their agencies to predict emotional impact of their videos, get them watched, tracked, and shared across paid and media. In practice, that means making, we have a seeding platform, we have our own video player, which we think probably works, is more shareable than perhaps YouTube's Big Talk, I know, and various other products, one of which I'm going to talk to you today. All right. The clue's in the name with Unruly Media in terms of the culture. It's quite a wacky place to work. We have a quite fun vibe going on. All sorts of silly shenanigans occur, but that can obscure the underlying commitment that they have towards innovation and new forms of technologies and just sort of thinking where no thinking has gone before. How's that working in the development team? Well, we've got 3 development teams at the moment, each consisting of 4 XP Java-centric, really intelligent guys. The team has a lot of different interests. Some people are more interested in database-related stuff. Some people are more interested in the process. And there's a very varied level of experience around customer-facing front ends, which is the kind of thing I'm interested in. And one UXO, which is okay. Again, tiny bit more context. the product where all these ideas and techniques that I'm going to talk about today came from was this thing. This is the kind of the marketing angle. It was an analytics product to take all this data that we keep harvesting from people sharing and watching videos and the time they spend flicking around different types of content and enabling the people who create that content to see what's going on. A bit more than Google Analytics for video, more like Google Analytics Plus, the ability to compare yourself against other companies' performance and kind of the general idea is to kind of to allow people to present that success or understand what's going on and be able to act on it. Okay. Right, our demo it looks like this. We've got lots of boards with stuff on. I don't know if you can see that. We've got whiteboards, magnetic whiteboards. We've got pairing stations here. It's good to notice two people, two keyboards, one screen. Lots of post-its and things stuck on the walls. Right. The project, the analytics product itself, I gave you the marketing side of things. The real project challenges seem to be for us, we're offering insight into social media. It's the people we spoke to who are our clients and posting stuff online in copious amounts had real trouble actually understanding some of the basic stuff around how the internet worked, how video worked, how it was shared, what the limitations for tracking it were, those kinds of things. There were a great variety of users in terms of their knowledge of statistical analysis, of how data works, how data gets collected and is stored and can be analysed. So, but we went a lot of different kind of viewpoints, some more kind of creative people, some more technical people to address, plus the one pretty much underlying factor on all of them, which was their concern for how things were presented, the rendering of that information in chart form, particularly the one group, they were very sensitive towards how good it looked, because they were taking these kind of the results of this kind of thing and wanting to put it in front of their manager, client, and say, look how well we've done, it looks amazing. Almost a presentation tool, as much as a decision-making tool. Okay. Our team's philosophy and the sort of project philosophy for about the 6 or 7 of us was the developers particularly. I was fairly new to XP principles, but the developers particularly were committed to XP principles. That particularly, I think these are the most XP people I've come across before. They all seem to have a very adventurous spirit, constantly want to try new things, new ways of doing things, try and keep an open mind, as open as possible. And one factor at the origin, the kind of origin of the project was to, the CEO said to us, well, I've read this awesome book, Lean Startup, I love the ideas behind it. Do this, go forth and be lean. But when he was speaking, I'd just been listening to various lean theories and conversations that were going on around user experience. And so when he said Lean Startup, I heard Lean UX. Rubbed my hands together. Okay. First point for user experience people in the going into an area or a team that haven't come across this before was to recognise really the kind of philosophy behind it. So think about XP. There are differences between Agile, particularly XP, and the user-centered design process, which is UCD. Agile tends to accentuate acceptance and unit testing, so it's always a kind of an interesting challenge to find where I should fit usability testing into that. it has been criticised for being light on the side of user-side software, as opposed to perhaps best used with non-GUI and intensive applications. Which means, sometimes some of the teams I've come across have created some things like this, which is, I'm not blaming or pointing fingers or anything like that. It's just kind of the fact that what you put in comes out the other end. But the chief challenge I think that I find and faced was the lack of explicitly designed process around gathering requirements and kind of the upfront design side of things. Okay, so what techniques do I use? Well, to start with, just some basic philosophies around user experience were really useful to commit to people. I'm quite well known for sort of leaving a trail of posters behind me. So we're, last few places I worked at, you probably know where I've been because you'll find one of these stuck up somewhere. And it's something that it's good for people to get used to saying. Another one is how to listen. I think one of the chaps earlier said about one of the most important things that he was told, I think it was Dan this morning, was shut up and listen. This is really important. When you listen to users, we get quite used to to coming up with ideas, providing a solution, but there's quite a lot you can get just from listening to your users themselves. Okay. Right. So the team did quite a few tech lightning talks, just like the kind of thing we're about to see next in the other room, I think. And quite often they do talks, or they show video, or do placement slides. These I found some really useful videos that people posted around kind of things they did in their own teams, which it's offered quite a lot of perspective to the rest of the team. They could see that, okay, so guys, other developers do things like this. I see the benefit now because they can see sort of an end-to-end result, squished down and edited nicely into a 5-minute slot. Okay. The fact we can stick stuff to walls and we've got magnetised whiteboards is very precious to me. This might look like a lot of documentation, but really they're records of conversations or decisions we've made. So it's a great place for me to kind of look and have people come out of the team come along and say, wow, what were we deciding about X? What was the layout, or what was the animation or interaction aspect of a certain feature? And here I was able to kind of provide it, or for a given iteration, I could illustrate it and have it right there, and change it on the fly. Okay, another way of involving guys was in research. I would notice that quite often they were asking questions about, does our user do this? How do I don't know whether our user would do this or that or X or Y. What are his motivations? However much user research we did up front, I'll go on to that about personas later on. Really specific things like this, you can't cover until you kind of come across them. And so I just stuck up a piece of A3, and the guys could just write down their question, whack it up on the board, and this then became the kind of the source or the kind of seed for testing that I do. So I might write a script and say, and ask those questions directly of users or of vanilla users that I might be who might fulfil the attributes of our personas. For example, I wrote a script for that the guys could take. Any of the team could take to when they visit a client, because what we're doing was largely B2B, so we couldn't all send on them. So even one by one, we would sort of visited various locations where our users worked, where they functioned, attended sales meetings, and this just acted as prompts. And even if they couldn't remember the exactly what we all asked, this helped the guys and me to remember exactly what we were trying to find out, and then providing a place to kind of document that, but also share it. So they could bring this back and then radiate it back to the team. Okay. One classic technique I heard a lot of talk about online and provides a nice kind of encapsulation is the nurturing of user empathy. Now, this is sort of the way I see my role a little bit, which is helping the deckers, the guys in the Starship Enterprise to communicate down with the planet, where all the users live. So one of those techniques is personas. Now, this is contentious. If you've come across personas before or used them, certainly I've had a lot of people have varying experiences with them. And as far as I can tell, apart from rhetoric, it seems to me they're just not really being used in quite as a thorough sense as they could be, and that's where they fail. Now, lean UX and sort of more agile type people who've done UX before have recommended doing much more sketchy personas that look like this. But I think this is where I would go traditional. I'll talk about that in a bit. But this example of some of the persona workshops we had. So recognise Navi there from this morning, and there's our CEO who was at a session specifically for those guys, because as a startup they'd started very small, so they had quite a lot of impact and quite a lot of interaction with users themselves. So it's really important to get their buy-in and their perspective on things, which I have to say I did a little experiment to see whether it differentiated with what the sales guys, the customer service guys, the guys who interacted really directly with our current users in other products, to see how similar it was. And by and large, the results are pretty much the same, which is quite pleasing. But this is the result of a classic persona workshop, which is an awful lot of attributes, which then get distilled into personas. Now, it's no good just having these personas. Okay, the process is quite good, it gets the conversation going. A lot of people, I think this particular project was the most useful persona process I've had, where they, the people involved got a lot out of it, as opposed to the result. But it's really important that we reflect that back to the rest of the team. So, as I say, I do err on the side of formality here. You might start, someone might jump up now and start screaming, "That's documentation," or something. But actually, we keep them very fluid. I leave a space here for the annotations on there, and a persona that doesn't have lots of post-its or annotations or scratchings on makes for a kind of a living dead persona, a zombie persona as they're called, which doesn't, it's no good to anyone really.
Just a quick question. When you're defining your personas, do you find that the personas you can choose are skewed by your own environment, your own interpersonal relationships? Because there was this thing about a while back where Microsoft had they characterised devs into 5 different personality types, and it just got so much flack. Because it missed out whole demographics. Yeah,
I think that's about the thoroughness and the rigorousness of your process. If you follow the right techniques, I've never had a problem with that result, with an authentic result, as opposed to a kind of I don't know the details of that process, I'll have to look at that. Interesting. Okay. But that wasn't enough. The people using we're looking at the personas and saying, yeah, great, there are some personas, we're doing UX, yay. We weren't really, we just had some personas. So how are we going to meld or kind of burn these users into the process? And one technique was to actually place them straight into the user stories. Now, this leads nicely along from Rachel's session earlier. And classically, and certainly the ones I've come across before, the user story, the classic statement goes, as a user, I would like to say that. there are other formats, but this is a fair enough example. But we tried just putting the name of the persona in there, and it actually had quite a significant result, but not quite enough. There has been some research over the last few years which suggested strongly that, and significantly, that having a picture on your persona is absolutely key to its success. But we took those a little bit further and started putting those on stickers, and putting little mini stickers from Mood.com, and putting them right onto the story cards. And you can see there she is, smiling away. And I dare any developer to kind of come up and take one of these cards and not notice that first, and not sort of realise who the story is really for. And this really helps people step into the shoes of the user. Right. Fantastic, thank you. Very good, say it's on. Okie doke, right. The next step really is that kind of flip from theory, lots of ideas, to actually making stuff, or just going into more practice, actually making a UI. Where do you go from here? So this is a challenge, I think, in quite a few teams I've been in. And there's various techniques you can use. Certainly for guiding people around into sort of maintaining the kind of level of stuff you've got is great. If you've got the level of kind of consistency of your interaction design and so on, you can create guidelines. You can create even like a reference card here, which I made for the call to actions. You've got the CSS classes, and the result you should get from applying different things, or where they should be used. But that's all very well, but it doesn't really help you actually generate things. Come up with these new things. But that's one of the trickiest things I've come across. Quite often there's this divide in many companies, artificial or sometimes even geographical, where you have some programmers or developers, or the technical side in one place and the design in the other. Some people are saying they're wired differently, perhaps. I'm not going to argue any of that. All I'm saying, this is what I've come across and heard people say. So designers are fluffy, they don't know anything. I'm not a designer. And later on, when they do get delivered designs, for instance, and I've been in that position, you could look at it and go, this guy knows nothing about interactions. Or, you can't do that on the internet. That's ridiculous. That's 5 years out, or that'll never be possible. But essentially, I think it's if we're trying to kind of make a team that can that are participating in making the product. I think what's been said is I can't draw. Now, I think I disagree with that. Right, can you draw for me the symbols you see on the screen there? Any way you want. Two of each. He's over-delivering. That's fantastic.
They're in shadow.
Oh, shadow. Nice answers. You're not by any chance interaction designer.
You're absolutely right, I'm not.
Well, I think I should promote you, because this is the dark secret of interaction design. Is that I'll definitely give you a pencil later on, just as to show that you're truly a designer.
Super.
Yeah. It's if you can essentially, we're talking about drafting here. We don't need something that Picasso would be jealous of, but if you can draw one of these objects, I'd say pretty much you can sketch out and draft a UI and a user experience. Now, with that in mind, there's still that gap between how do you get the team really kind of starting to evolve and get involved in it. How do you facilitate that process of doing? Even getting involved, because I think there's a mental barrier as well. There are some really nice techniques. This is one that we used called Design Chavettes or Design Studio. It's since been documented in a book called Lean UX by Jeff Gossell, very good. It's a recommended read, but it was based on one of the students at the design schools in Paris. And students being what they were, they would, they'd have like monthly iterations, we all know about iterations. Monthly iterations where they had to present some stuff, and the tutor would say, that's rubbish, or go away and make it blue, or something like that. But students being what they were, they'd probably do it at the last minute, and as the guy came around with his carts to collect all the students' work, they'd just be sort of throwing these last minute sketches on there. And the most important thing about that was that interested me by a friend of mine who taught me the process, was the urgency with which you have to create something, and that if you can sort of recreate that, then I think you can skip over some of these kind of barriers and enterprises that you want to have. Okay, so I'm going to skip through this a little bit and perhaps talk about it afterwards, because I've got a lot more I want to talk about. But essentially, it's a process of picking an epic, choosing a persona, and then as sort of pairs, perhaps you break out and come up with some ideas, return back to the group, share them, and then break out again, start drawing, perhaps with very, very simple ideas, come back again, discuss, share, choose the best ones, excuse me, and then break out again to really, to finish up, and each group then designs a kind of complete flow, or whatever they think suits the particular story or feature that we're talking about. And then we come back together, and the most important thing about these is that each of these steps maybe takes the maximum of 10 or 15 minutes, and that urgency is really quite effective. This is the first step. This is a couple of teams' results. Just the ideas that people just started throwing at the wall. People love when they've got some good facilitation. I think people certainly get the kind of people that I come across in at Unruly are very good at coming up with these ideas, and that's all very well. But when it came to the drawing side of things, by God, I don't think I'd be too ashamed to present that to one of my clients, and that was done by a chap who was very new to front-end work. I think he was really interested in what is it? Databases. I can't remember. These are from all over the place, but yeah, here's some other examples. But this is particularly nice. I think it's got some really nice detail on it. There's some annotations. There's I'll share these later. You can have a look more closely. But it's really told a story. And at the beginning of the process, there was hostility. People were very unsure about what they were doing, and it was quite an amazing transformation. Okay. Next technique for sketching stuff down and capturing actual stuff, people's ideas and things to build, was kind of came to me when I walked past this, which was behind a pop video that was being filmed, I think, where I was looking around for reasons I won't go into, and I couldn't believe how detailed their storyboard was, because storyboarding originally, I think, came from film. And in my experience, I don't know if you've seen the storyboards of Star Wars and those kind of things, they're really, they're very kind of high level. They're very general, and they express a whole bunch of stuff, but I've never seen anything so detailed as this. And looking at a photographer could take one of these off and go off and create a whole scene. There was lots of information in each one. So their connection seemed pretty obvious, because we've been sketching on cards, because if you do this kind of thing, you've got boards with cards, you've got loads of cards to hand, very handy little things, which just so happened to be about the right size to sketch a modal dialogue or a light box in. So, I got, I think as a user experience person, you get quite adverse to constantly updating wireframes, and this is one of the downsides, or the upsides of Agile, downsides of older ways of working, which is having to keep these up to date, because I don't think they ever really are. And it just seemed like I was spending my time making lovely wireframes or keep updating those instead of designing or building a product. A classic problem. So this technique seems to be really address that. So it's like a user flow, and each one of these could represent a process or or actually a physical modal dialog, or this one's like a little screen layout, and it showed what would happen, what was necessary to create that story. Yep, and excuse me. I think one really good thing was the bit I hate the most about stories is when we start to run out of time and we have to start thinking about things we might have to remove from that story. But what this does do is perhaps make it very easy to take one of these out if it was removable from the flow, and then just kind of sketch around it. So it makes it very, very flexible. Everyone can be involved. Okay. Yeah, here's some examples. Right. I think one thing that XP people the XP people that I came across at Unruly were quite adverse to was making code that was perhaps not going to be production. It was almost like a sacrilege, it felt like at one point. But prototyping, I think, in the way we did it, eventually solved some very useful problems. Right, so it's where we go. I guess prototyping is where, for me, where we go from something that's sketchy and theoretical into something that's actually you can play with, because it's no good having a beautifully designed PSD, a Photoshop document with all sorts of lovely controls designed in there. It never really communicates what's going to happen to the customer or my fellow developers or the product manager, whoever happens to have a stake in the given story. So we were doing so many sketching, so many bits of sketching, so many whiteboard sessions and various other things that it felt a really natural step to just to take those sketches, photograph them or scan them or sketch them out with one of these kind of pens that digitise immediately as you write, and then paste them and literally embed them in pages. And what this enabled us to do was to create the whole set of screens that we were going to build in a kind of you could look at it, I guess, as maybe perhaps an elongated spike. I don't know, that might be reaching a bit, but certainly it was very good for the stakeholders themselves. They could see exactly what we were going to produce. It helps us to rapidly iterate. If we thought an idea was a bad one or there wasn't consensus on a given piece of feature set or something, then we could change it very, very quickly without it's literally sketch it out, scan it, whack it up on the on this eternally accessible location. That's right. What was really crazy was really fantastic was this enabled not just me, the UX person, would be doing that. Historically, designers and UX people are a little bit kind of protective around creating the designs and sketching stuff out. But in fact, here we've got a sketch from the product manager. You can see his fingers there. And this was actually by the CEO. He came running down one morning and said, "Look, I had this brilliant idea." And slapped sort of 10 pieces of A3 on my desk, which is great. So he picked out a few, photographed them, and they were up, within 10 minutes of him doing that. So it enables a very rapid kind of and sort of collaborative process. Okay, I might skip a few. Thank you very much. Okay, so we evolved these into functioning wireframes, which looked a little bit like Paddington cartoons. They were great, but we couldn't go any further with this. One of the downsides was of this whole process was when we started to make things look more real than that, people were seasoned professionals started confusing what was a sketch with what was an actual finished product or UI. It's very odd, and particularly users when we're doing user testing on that on the prototype, they were confused or pointed out defects in something where we weren't expecting it to work, because they confused it for an actual functioning piece of interface. So something to be avoided there, I think, the difference between production and prototype. Okay, I'm going to speed through this. A few challenges here. I can't research all possible features, as one of me. Fast turnaround times in our working environments. I don't want to hold anyone up. And particularly B2B context is very challenging for user experience, because it's hard to get our users out from behind their desks. They don't want to help us. They just see it as they're helping someone else to make money. Why would they spend their time doing that? So there are lots of different ways of testing, but I don't think I could do Agile research really in modern times without the kind of remote testing services there are nowadays. This is we use one called usertesting.com. Amazing. You write the script, digitize it into steps, and then it gets played back in a user's to a kind of a selected user's computer where they are, and they in a remote location. They fit into a certain set of demographics. Someone recruits them for you, and then the whole thing gets recorded, including their voice. Very helpful. Also, microsurveys and feedback, really, really important. Use these services; they're great. It's easier to respond to the survey and then move on than to hide the little thing that pops up from the bottom of the screen. Okay, a few key things, because I'm really running out of time now. This is what the team should be like, right? This is, it's like a fit fighting unit. And so to maintain that kind of thing, that communication between different disciplines like me and more technical people, humour was very important. Don't underestimate that. But also pairing, even tripling with the PM and myself, and also we started pairing with the CEO, who was our sponsor, and I'd sit very close to the product manager, and we work on things together. And even we when we were under pressure at one point in the product development cycle, we got together and rapidly iterated with every day. Okay, so what really worked? Well, it's going to be a long journey. The team were quite new to user experience, so there are a lot of kind of concepts and things that were fairly alien, but there are some really good things that I can see happening here. What's great is the CEO seems to refer to personae in his slideshows. I'm not sure what that means, but it sounds fantastic. I think he's referring to personas. I've even seen people putting UX into their CVs on LinkedIn, which I think is fantastic. Okay, 1X. A few things that I really have to share. One was never stop refining. I know everyone seems to say this, but I cannot tell you how important this is, particularly with this, the way of building empathy with the various techniques we use with personas. But we just redesigned our board a couple of weeks ago. The next step for the personas is going to be, there's actually a service called Sticky Ground that will take your persona images and turn them into fridge magnets. And so we're actually sticking those onto our whiteboards, and it's great. It just what the stickers on cards didn't do was thank you very much. Didn't do was let the team themselves take control of the kind of the who users were almost. There just wasn't that kind of bonding going on. And I think this really helps the team to own their own board a lot more as a whole, not just me overseeing things. This is awesome fun. I had trouble getting people to listen to the kind of research that I came back with, because a dry email you get sent. Do you really want to read it? You've got lots of stuff to do. But creating mock-ups as I've got one like the Times here and one like the that's the Guardian, isn't it? And just writing it in those terms, so it made me distill those the research into something that's really, really palatable and understandable for people. So it also made me a little more concise. And one, I think it's one or two last things. I spent quite a lot of time doing research, but I think I really wanted the team to get involved themselves in doing research. Ideally, one day, I'd like the guys to be able to just say, I've got this question, or a series of questions, I'm going to go off and do that research. I can use the remote services quite easily, perhaps with a little bit of oversight for myself. But, so we started out with we're pairing together on analysing the results we get back, the data and so on, and that happens once a week. And then the onus is on one of the developers with a little rotor here to manage that process. So they do the research. Okay, there you go, finished. Fix it in.
Brilliant. I know there are going to be some questions, so kick off.
Quite a lot of stuff there, so
Yeah.
I apologise.
And apology for asking a question earlier.
No problems with that, no problems. Not needed. Do you have any questions? Deathly silence. Okay, awesome. Answer everyone's.
It's all
Awesome. So I'm going to post this up online, and I believe the organisers of this event will be posting it all in one place, so you can go to this and feel free to, if you have any other questions or you want to learn more.
Mike, are you coming to the beach tonight?
Hell yeah.
There you go. Fantastic. Guys, that's the end